welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name is Richard, I shall be your host for this evening, and this episode is going to be called, it's going to be long, this title, because I was thinking about it down in the kitchen when I was cooking some sea bass for dinner tonight, so it's going to be called Don't Keep Him Trapped in a Cage, Let Him Out. Because if anybody's going to talk about gold and orcs in the dungeon, the Talisman can. That's ridiculous. I'm going to cut that down, obviously. But joining me tonight is the member of what people are describing as the top gear of board games. It's Polyhedron Collider's Jon Cage.
Hello.
Hello, John. How are you, first of all?
I'm good. It's good to be here.
I'm delighted to have you on.
The PHC guys have let me out of my cage, as it were.
Figuratively speaking. I mean, there's probably a whole range of other titles I could have used which are going to be an awful lot better. I'll probably edit out that beginning since it was quite frankly, on reflection, dreadful, but it's not been the first time that I've let a kind of a bad title out on the kind of the podcast. But
you've got to start with one, right?
Yeah. Pretty much, and see how it goes. For everybody who's listening for the first time, hello, thank you for joining us. The reason that we do this is quite simply because there's not enough podcasts out there about board games. There's us, there's PHC, there's Meeples Anonymous, Staying In, but apart from that, iTunes is pretty much a blank slate as far as tabletop podcasts go. And the other reason that we had that we're doing this is because John appears on the Polyhedron Collider. John likes Talisman as well as other tabletop games.
Science fact.
And every time John tries to bring up Talisman, he gets interrupted by the Chuckle Brothers, also known as Steve and Andy. So we are going to talk a little bit about Talisman because we have to. Because just to have Andy Lewis in a rage is a fantastic, wonderful thing. The clean-shaven Andy Lewis as well.
Yeah, I still haven't got over the fact that he's lost his beard. It's weird.
I mean, it's kind of like a weird kind of before and after. It is almost like it's like that show that Davina McCall does, where you kind of meet like a long-lost relative, and It's almost like Andy as the father has then found Andy as the son.
It is a little bit terrifying. It's like he's dropped like 15, 20 years.
Oh dear. But we're not here tonight to talk about Andy, because Andy's been on the show and he's talked about his past and what he's been up to and everything like that. So tonight is, as I say, it's your night. So it's a chance to talk about your good self. So as normal, what we normally do in this instance is we find out a little bit about the past, a little bit about what you're doing in the present in terms of your cardboard obsession, and potentially things that you're looking forward to in the future, if that's okay with yourself. Because I don't know, I started listening to Polyhedron Collider about last year, I think. Because you've not been going that long, have you, as a podcast type thing, have you?
Not an enormous amount of time. I thought we'd actually been going, it feels like about 6 months, but it's probably more like a year and a half, 2 years now.
All right, okay. And from your point of view, because how did you get into the hobby yourself?
That's a good question. So I've always been interested in board games. Like, my family's always played them. I think the earliest one that I remember that was a little bit like not just Monopoly was something called Mystic Wood. So,
right.
Which is sort of a little bit like Talisman, but 2D. And
I'm gonna Google this.
And on a grander scale, you'll do well to find pictures of it. But it's like this real. I mean, it was ancient, but basically you have loads of little tiles, and I say little, they're probably like A5. And you turn them over as you explore this sort of mystic wood, and you've got to go and find, I think there's like the princess and the prince and some of the chalice or something like that. But basically it's like a sort of race to try and find the bits and pieces and then get back out of the mystic wood first.
I've found it, John.
There you go. So me and my sister used to play that for hours. Yeah,
go,
that's the one. Yeah.
And that's obviously for everybody looking at the webcam as we live stream, which we're not. But we'll remember to put a note in the show notes so everybody can kind of can take a look. It looks kind of fascinating. It looks like it reminds me of an old Atari 2600 game, which was called like the Adventure Game or something, where you went from big huge screen to big huge screen.
That is a pretty good description of it.
And there was only like 4 exits at any one time until you found the dragon that always kind of killed you. So you
So that was, I mean, we used to play that as kids, and it was then, when I was sort of teenager, I picked up like Warhammer 40k, all that sort of stuff, and we used to have some pretty epic battles, me and my mates. I think we talked on the PHC before about no one else bothered reading the rules for these things, so because I did read the rules, I would just, everyone would go by what I'd come up with.
Oh, right, okay.
And so when I did genuinely accidentally do this, but misread the rules for the Cyclone missile launcher on a Terminator.
Right.
It's not, in the rules it says 1/2 inch per missile, which means if you fire all 12, it's only a 6-inch radius blast, which is still quite big, but I misread it as 1.5 inches. If you got like 36 inches of blast radius, that's basically one side of the board.
So how many times did you claim victory
well,
by using that?
Basically, whenever I played my mates, their entire force would line up with wherever this guy was deployed. And then everything would try and kill him. Of course, it was equally hilarious when it misfired and basically took out my entire army.
Did you keep up with that then? Was that kind of led you through your kind of formative years, or?
Yeah, I think I probably stopped playing it probably 17, 18, something like that. And then had a bit of a break when I went to uni. And the only games I played at uni were drinking games. But there were lots of them.
Did you become a master of the drinking game then?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, I think if you try to put drinking games out there in the board game space, people would probably still complain about the mechanics. There's not enough depth to it. I'd want something else. And they definitely wouldn't want a roll to move mechanic or anything like that. They'd want something kind of substantial kind of going on.
See, if they need you need variety and you need depth for a good drinking game. So something like Ring of Fire is a great game because there's most of the game is sub-games, so it's all completely different and they all keep on getting interlinked, or at least it is the way we play it.
We used to play Roxanne.
Oh yeah, the song,
the actual song.
Yeah,
and you drunk on one of you's drunk on Roxanne and the rest of you drunk on Put On the Red Light.
That's right.
And it was a mixture between pints and shots.
Nice.
So you you kind of it was a pint for Roxanne, and then it was shots. It was Put On the Red Light. You just had a nip of Southern Comfort. It was always Southern Comfort in those days. I can't imagine even looking at Southern Comfort nowadays because it's a disgusting kind of drink. But that's what you did. You kind of went Roxanne, took a sip because it was always long. You don't have to put in the red boof, and that's how it kind of went.
That does sound pretty messy.
I think you kind of forgot what you were doing kind of like halfway through, to be perfectly honest. And then you were just kind of moving on to kind of whatever, probably looking at the ground, kind of wondering why the varnish of the kind of the Union floor kind of tasted like that.
We used to go on then from that onto Bonnie Tyler Turnaround. So every time she says turn around, you have to stand up, take a drink, turn around and sit back down again. And that one gets lethal pretty quickly.
Yeah. See. Can you imagine Andy and Steve would have never guessed we're going to spend the next hour talking drinking games and getting absolutely blasted out of our tiny minds.
Actually, when I said Steve's editing skills are ninja, you have no idea. I mean, we're absolutely screwed by the end of the podcast.
So you did the normal, I guess, accepted kind of break from about the age of 17 onwards. So when did you fall back in? When did you fall off the wagon again and get embroiled?
I think it's falling back on the wagon. But yeah.
Yeah.
I got back into it. I think I used to go and play a lot of computer games with some mates. Lots of LAN parties and that sort of thing. Mm. And there was one LAN party where we'd basically it was a 2.5 day weekend kind of event, and we'd got bored of playing computer games. And one of the guys said, "Well, we could just play this board game I've got here.
All right.
It's a bit different, but it's sort of still, it's still quite geeky. It's not like your traditional board game." And I was like, "Okay, interesting." And the guy pulls out Robo Rally. Oh,
okay. The original old edition of Robo Rally.
Yeah. So so we played that, and after 5 minutes of it, I was like, "This is bloody brilliant! I love this." So that sort of kind of re-engaged me, and then we ended up doing an RPG, werewolf RPG with some of those same guys, and that was great fun. And then I can't remember how I originally I found Talisman at uni through a friend. I played it once in a very drunken evening, and when we played this Robo Rally stuff again, I suddenly remembered that I'd really enjoyed playing that board game. It took me ages to find it, but I did eventually find a copy, and that's it sort of went from there, really.
Did you hang on to your copy of Robo Rally, or did it disappear off somewhere?
So the original one was a friend's copy, and I've since bought another copy. I don't know which version it is, but it's not the new one they just brought out.
Have you tried the new one?
No, but I am quite interested to.
I'm just interested to hear what they've done with the mechanics, because one of the games I heard that was slightly similar to Robo Rally was kind of Mechs and Minions. Mm-hmm. And you've managed to play that, haven't you?
Yeah, I really love that game. It's great fun.
Is it kind of legacy in the way it kind of plays? I know that because I've got a copy, but me and Colin have yet to kind of get it to the table. But I've heard that you kind of, as you do missions, you basically unlock more and more powers that kind of change the game and kind of what it kind of does.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So it does sort of unlock things, and things progress as it goes. But I think Steve's played like the first mission or two probably 3 or 4 times and gone backwards and forwards. So it's not a legacy game in the sense that you're ripping up rules and then that's it. It's done. You never get a chance to do it again. But it is in the sense that, like you say, you release more. And at the end, you get a guy in a box or something in a box. Yeah. You can see like an axe poking out through the cardboard. That's pretty cool.
I'm fascinated to find out what that actually is. I'm hoping it's not some kind of joke where you open it up and it's just a really small minion holding a really really massive axe, and it's like been packaged by Amazon, so the figure's tiny, but it's got about 90% of the box is actually packaging to kind of protect it.
That would be hilarious.
You've come back recently from America, which is discussed on one of the latest kind of Polyhedron Collider shows, and I hope you had a fun time. Is your partner? Do they partake in the cardboard at all?
Yeah. So my wife Kaz is. I wouldn't say she's as fanatical as I am.
Yeah.
But she certainly enjoys a good game. So
okay.
She also quite likes Talisman. She bought I can never remember the name of this game. Machu Picchu. I took a picture of all my games earlier just to remind myself what I've actually got. I was quite alarmed to look at Machikoro. That's it.
Machikoro, there you go. John's referring to his phone. I've got mine as well. We've decided tonight, normally what I do is I record blind on Skype and just have the audio. Oh, here we go.
There you go. So there are 3
incredible.
Massive towers of games. I think there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's probably 30 or 40 games there, I would say.
That's pretty impressive.
Which isn't bad. But then if you look in more detail at what they are, maybe it is bad. Come on. If you're a hardcore board gamer. So, all right, I'll just whiz through them. So we've got a Barma Llama, Munchkin League Letters, Hey That's My Fish, Munchkin, The Big Bang Theory Party Game. I didn't buy that one for the record.
Yeah, okay.
Clax, Risk, Callisto, Firefly, Munchkin Quest, The Worst Case Scenario Survival Board Game, which,
all right,
without the board, is actually not a bad game at all. Game of Trains I bought the other day because Andy and Steve banged on about it for so long.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Befuzzled, Exploding Kittens, Code Names, Blockus, Go, Galaxy Trucker. I know someone's going to berate me for this, but Settlers of Catan. Pandemic, Scrabble. Nothing Personal. I really want to play that game. I haven't got around to it yet. Ominoes, Dixit, Suro. The Bigger, Blacker Box, of course. Bit of Cards Against Humanity. Bananagrams. It's a lot of people berate it, but so yeah. Before I get, there's loads of other ones: Robo Rally, Blockus, Neuroshima Hex, Game of Thrones, Battlestar, obviously Talisman, in a great big box. But a lot of people, well, Andy and Steve in particular, always berate me because I don't always get into some of the sort of longer strategy kind of games. But what they don't normally let on, or Steve edits out because it's funnier, is that
it's confessions night. Yeah, it is. This is brilliant.
I've been released.
This is like you've gone to the Mirror newspaper or something, and it's like, you know what I mean, my 18 months of lies and editing under Polyhedron Collider. We speak to Jon Cage. Hear his story.
That's exactly what it is.
This is fantastic.
I forgot what my point was going to be now.
You were saying that Steve edits stuff out.
Yeah, so it may come across that I'm only into very shallow, very simple games, but and the real truth is that I tend to, most of the time, I end up playing games with people who don't play board games a lot.
Yeah.
So, I could crack out a game of Imperial Assault or something like that, but chances are, if I ever manage to persuade someone to play with it, they'd look at it and just go, I don't understand. What is all this stuff?
And they'd have little chance in trying if it's involved with a Fantasy Flight kind of rule book.
Yeah.
Nowadays, which seems to be, here's the basic rules. Cool. I've learned the basic rules. And now here's a whole pile of rules that you completely have to relearn the game over. Haha, kind of thing.
Or here's a bit about the rules, you play through this bit. Here's a bit about the rules, you play through this bit. Here's a bit about the rules, you play through this bit. And they look at it and go, right, I need to know that table about, is it strength or craft on? Hang on, it's on page, blah, blah, blah. Here we are. Yeah, it's that table there that's buried on the 13th page for whatever reason.
It's like finding you've got IKEA instructions for a pizza, basically. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of, it's all over the place in a bit of a muddle. You were mentioning, were you talking about the Exit the Room kind of games on a recent show, a Polyhedron Collider as well?
It was mentioned, yeah. Steve played one of those.
Yeah, did you get a chance to play yourself? I think you were asking if it was worthwhile kind of picking up.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to do them. My concern with that sort of game is that, although I think they'd be good fun in a party, I can't see how much they'd replay. And Steve's point was that basically that they're pretty cheap. And so if you're going to bring it out for a Christmas kind of thing, maybe it costs 10-15 quid for the game, but if you entertain your entire family for an entire afternoon, that's not bad really, is it?
I suppose, but up in Scotland would be people would be going, right, so where's the food? And it's well, I got something even better. And if I put down a little tiny kind of an exit box there, I wouldn't have time to stand up off the couch without getting lynched and dragged outside and kind of hung, drawn and quartered. Is there, do you get to play, you mentioned the stuff, you don't get to play a lot of kind of games. Is there anything that you have been playing recently that you kind of like the look of, that you've been enjoying?
I bought Game of Thrones, so I haven't had a chance to play that one yet.
Yeah.
The stuff I've played most recently has been things like Tsuro, Dixit. I've played a lot of Sorry recently. Only because.
Was it your honeymoon you were on?
It was a wedding anniversary. But,
oh, right, okay, yeah.
Which, I mean, you could read what you like into that.
you probably would have played a lot of Sorry whether you had the board game or not.
So the friends that we were out in Chicago visiting,
yeah,
they've got a little girl who's 6, and so you inevitably end up playing a few kids games. I've forgotten actually how much it fits into board games that I like, really, in that it involves a fair amount of dick moves.
Oh dear! It's kind of like it is doing one over on the other people completely.
And the board game's called Sorry. I mean, it's in the name, isn't it? Oh, I am so sorry. I've just sent your guy home. Really sorry about that. Yeah, of course you are.
It's just all the kind of the randomness. So, how many times did you win? Sorry, on how many times did you lose, and how many times did the 6-year-old girl beat you? Then
I think she beat us most of the time when she played, which is yeah. I mean, she's good. Don't get me wrong. I think she's basically a professional hustler. So I don't feel too bad about it. But she was good, and she's been trained by. I mean, her dad's a semi-professional gambler. So.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's you gotta know when to hold them, know when to fold them.
That's it. And when to say sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Do you? I mean, you don't do an awful lot of Kickstarter. So I've heard on the show. And anyone that's wondering, well, you're talking about stuff that you kind of is beyond the veil and we don't know about. Dear listener, if you're not listening to Polyhedron Collider, you flippin' well should be, because if you think we're okay, these guys are, as I say, I refer to them as the top gear of board game kind of podcasting, and they are that good. But I'm just wondering, who's Jeremy Clarkson out of the three of you?
Yeah, so I would have thought this was fairly obvious, but Andy's clearly Clarkson, the ape. Size-wise, I don't think it quite works, but we're a podcast, so it's fine.
It doesn't matter. I know it's all kind of invisible.
Yeah, it's alarming how well that analogy works, actually, because he is all about let's just wade in with all of our ships and kill everything in sight. Whee! And then
No, you're saying.
And then you've got Steve, who's like deep, proper technical, knows everything about the industry, about how board games are put together, about why cardboard needs to be 2 millimeters thick, and don't let him get started. Honestly, it's a nightmare.
So is he like the James?
He would be the James May, yeah. And then there's the idiot, the idiot pretty boy, who's there for. Yeah, to take it a little bit lighter, I think.
Are you talking about Andy again? Well, I mean, he's got the beard off.
He has got the beard.
Maybe he's decided to step back down again and say, like, he doesn't want to be the grumpiest gamer in the world. He wants to be kind of.
But he's got the voice down to a T, so yeah.
You have to make him do an entire episode doing Jeremy Clarkson. I mean, I think it's only kind of fair.
I don't think I could cope with that. It's bad enough the stuff we edit out as it is.
Do you do an awful lot of editing? Because I don't know, I've kind of got it down to a T where I kind of edit out all the bits where it's not where I'm umming and ahhing, but it's where I'm obviously asked the most stupidest question in the world. Because sometimes you'll hear me kind of drastically change in tone when I'm talking. So I'll be going, so moving on, let's go into board games. And you tell what's actually happened is I've asked a 2.5 minute question, which is what I normally do. And then the person went, you what, mate? I'm not on Kickstarter. Sorry.
Well, they just say yes.
Yeah, they just say yes and just let me kind of crumble into the abyss kind of by myself. But do you do a lot of editing on the show then? Are there bits that kind of don't turn up which you went, oh, that was cracking, that was really, really good fun?
I think if it was a cracking bit, it would have ended up in there, even if it was, so close to some crap bits that they had to go in as well. The difficulty that we tend to have is that I think we probably record easily twice as much as we actually put out.
Really?
And that's with me trying to direct them in the right direction. Let's just... but again, guys, what was the game we were actually talking about?
That's what they always say. They always come up with a ramshackle thing, and it's like, oh, if only John was here to put us in the right direction, because otherwise it's kind of like tangent central. But moving away from them, because we are moving away from them, because one of the reasons that we've got you along here tonight, and I think you thought I was kind of taking the proverbial Andy when I said let's come on and talk a little bit about Talisman. One of the things we do on the show, on occasion, well, all the time, is if somebody likes a game, they come on and they have a chat about it. Now, we are of the philosophy and the mindset that not everybody knows what every single board game out there is about. People will say, well, it's got the mechanics like Catan, and folk will go, kill what? Kind of thing. So, one of the games that you get berated for all the time on Polyhedron Collider is Talisman.
It is. We need the ding.
We need the ding. I need to find a ding. Let me find a ding. There's not going to be a ding here. There's definitely not going to be a ding.
I think the ding was a PHC mechanism that Steve introduced to try and dissuade me from mentioning Talisman on every single episode.
Yeah, I think it's... I've seen it before employed in other podcasts where I think the video game Dark Souls gets mentioned and you get somebody else going, ding, ding, ding. That's the Dark Souls mention for the podcast. When Talisman, it's Games Workshop, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And when were you first introduced to it? Tell us your little story about Talisman, how you got involved in it in the first place.
So, the first one I ever played was one of the really early editions. It might even have been the first edition, in fact. But this was back when I was at uni, and I used to play. In fact, it was before uni. It was when I was at college. I used to play a lot of online games, and this was like when the internet was still young. So playing online games was something a little bit unusual. And I used to have this guild for a game called Diablo.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And my right-hand man who helped me run this thing, we ended up like meeting up various times and like just playing computer games all weekend. And there was one particular weekend we went down to his brother in London, and he and his mates made us drink beer, and it was horrible. And play this weird board game called Talisman. And to begin with, I was a bit like, really? I thought we were here to like play computer games all weekend.
Yeah.
And this looks weird. And after about, 20 minutes, half an hour, it sort of clicked. And I kind of got the whole, the ethos of it. So the rough idea is that it's a board organised in rings. And your ultimate goal is to get right into the very centre, beat everyone else there, and open this card that's in the middle that's going to have some mystical event, and that's going to be the end game kind of thing. But unlike a lot of games where you have a defined sort of number of rounds or whatever, this can go on for, well, I think we've once had a game go on for 2 or 3 days, like not continuously but playing it for quite some time, like stopping for dinner, going out for a walk, that sort of stuff. Because we're
exercising, going to the toilet.
Yeah, because we were away for like a holiday, and there was like eight people playing this game. That's the other thing, is that you can have loads of people playing it. It does scale, up to a point. It does, yeah. If you've got lots of new people, it's tricky because you spend an awful lot of time between goes, which can be a bit frustrating. But yeah, so the ultimate goal is to get to this very central thing. And you reveal this final card, assuming you make it there alive. And this card will either be something like, "Congratulations, you've won the game. You've found the talisman. You are the ruler of the universe," sort of thing. Or it might just be a black void opens in front of you, and you're sucked into the ether. Start again.
So you could lose.
So you can lose. So you could play this game.
Or you could start again.
Yeah. So you could play this game for like 3 or 4 hours, and then that's it. start again. I love the. It's a bit like Dark Souls and those sorts of games, where you think you're doing okay, and then something crushing happens, and basically you get destroyed. We used to play Diablo in what we called Iron Man mode, which meant that basically if you died, that's it. You had to start again.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was just this massive challenge that, no matter how tough it got, you just had to survive. And if something went wrong, well, tough luck.
So what's the base mechanics behind it? I know I'm kind of getting down to the nitty gritty, but there will be people who... Because obviously is it last year or now, or early on this year, Games Workshop announced, listen, we're Fantasy Flight, it's finished, nobody publishing it. Did that affect Talisman at the time? Is Talisman one of the Fantasy Flight staples? I can't remember off the top of my head.
I'd have said it was a staple. I'll tell you what, the price of expansions has gone up incredibly. Like an expansion that was £10, probably nine months, a year ago, is now like £160 on eBay. I'm really wishing that I'd bought more than one copy now.
I take it. Do you have all the kind of expansions then?
I think I'm maybe missing one or two, but it gets to the point where you've got so many expansions. A lot of them sort of just add to the base game. So, in fact, let me describe the base game. So, the ultimate goal is to get into the middle, but there's a lot that happens before you get to that point. So, basically, you take it in turns to roll a dice and then decide which way you're going, so right or left, basically. And quite often, the squares are kind of symmetric, so it'll be a choice between going to the fields or going to the plains.
Oh, right, okay.
And then, in most squares, you then encounter something. So most squares say draw a card, and it's always from the same deck. So I think this is one of the big criticisms that people have, that the choices you have are relatively limited. And it doesn't really matter which one you choose, because whichever one you choose, you're still going to draw from the same deck. You're still going to encounter that card. And the cards are things like it might be a stranger, it might be a follower that wants to come along with you, it might be a monster you've got to fight, it might be an event that affects you, or it might be an event that affects the entire board. But basically, you're going around doing this, taking in turns, basically trying to build up the strength or the craft of your character. So strength being like your ability to whack things over the head, and craft being able to psychically attack stuff.
Right, okay.
And depending on, there's all different characters, so some of them are stronger at strength, some of them are kind of middle of the range on both, and some of them are purely crafty characters, with a load of extra bits and pieces allowing you to do things like steal possessions off of people, cast spells that affect other people. And that, for me, I think, is where the game gets more fun. Because it's not just all of you going around in circles just bashing monsters over the head. There's also a lot of, I would like to bash that monster over the head, but equally, that person that I could land on in the other direction's got some really shiny stuff. So if I go over there and I just stab, I'd like your that lovely ring you've got there that adds 2 to your strength. I'd like that, please. Fine, take the fucking ring.
Do you move like in a circle? Is it a circular board, or is it a square board, or how does it work?
The base board is like a big rectangle, and it's organised in 3 concentric rings. So you can move. Okay. It's basically a linear board in 3 rings. So you can go right or left in whichever ring you're in, and there's a few opportunities to move between the rings. And as you move further in, it gets progressively more difficult. So in the outer ring, you'll encounter 1 card at a time. In the next ring, you'll encounter 2 or maybe 3 cards at a time. And in the final ring, it's like you either had to be very strong or very crafty. Because there's loads of trials like roll some dice against your craft, and if you get the wrong way, you basically get sent back outside, or you have to survive a pit full of werewolves. And basically, you have to fight. You have to roll for their strength and then fight all of them until they're all dead. And if you don't, you lose a life each time you're doing this. So, quite a lot of the trials that are in the last section, they basically make your character progressively weaker.
Yeah.
So you either have to be really strong and just boss it out, or you end up going, oh fuck, I'm not actually going to be able to get through this. So I'm going to have to go back out and And there's some end game modifiers. There's one that we call the Hand of Doom, which basically is like the original Talisman. So the newer fourth edition revised.
Yeah.
When you get to the middle, you're supposed to basically roll it. You get the Crown of Command, and you have to roll a dice to basically kill off everyone else in the game until you're the only one left, and then it's it. You won. You're the Emperor of no one because you've killed everyone. But whereas the Hand of Doom brings back that draw a card, and it might be that you've won the game, or it might be that you've lost the game. And this adds that actually you might have lost the game for everyone, so nobody wins. That's it. Everyone in the entire world is dead.
What's turned this from kind of like a like of the game into a love of the game for you? Is it because you've played it for so many times now? Do you play it with the same people when you play it? Is it, do you consider yourself a kind of a Talisman kind of pioneer?
I would. So I tend to think of it that it's quite a good game if people have only ever played things like Monopoly or maybe if they're feeling really adventurous, Risk or something like that. To play something like Talisman, you can see like the first maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, there's a bit of, what the fuck is this? Why am I playing this? This is bonkers. I just don't really understand it. And I've got one friend who's played it 3 or 4 times. He still doesn't understand. But he's found out that it's called Talisman, and therefore if you collect all the talismans, everyone comes hunting for you, which means it must be the right thing to do, right? But for me, I just think it's a relatively easy game to get into, with a bit more depth than a lot of the kind of standard, boring, original kind of classic board games. And it's a good thing to get people involved. So if you can get them onto that, there's a good chance that you might then be able to get them to play, I don't know, more in-depth games, like maybe even going as far as TI or something like that.
Ooh, that's a big ask.
I'm not saying you jump straight there.
That's
but it's a gateway. It's
that sounds like a gateway to hell. Right, we've put your Talisman. How's your brain? It's a bit melty. Okay. What's that? It's a big lion. What are we going to do with that? You'll see.
You'll be fine.
Yeah. How long have you got? Well, I've got to be home in about 7 hours' time. That's cool. That should be enough to get the game set up. Because that's what I've heard. Who's it?
Andy
set
it up a few times.
Yeah. He says he's got. Has he played it yet, or has he just set it up yet? I think he was saying he was one of the games he was always wanting to get actually to the table was Twilight Imperium. Did he manage to play it?
I don't think he has yet.
Shame on you, Lewis. Goodness sake. So is that has that kind of is that the type of game that you're kind of looking for? I mean, since are there other games like Talisman that you've kind of seen that you'd like to play, and anything along those lines?
Yeah, so you say I'm not a Kickstarter person, but I did actually back the City of Kings.
Yes.
And that game, absolutely loved it. Exactly the same sort of mechanics involved, but a little bit more co-op.
All right, okay.
And you can move in 2 dimensions.
Because you met, did you meet Frank Aircon, didn't you?
Yeah,
I think.
That's right.
And you kind of played the game. You kind of played the game there, much to my complete jealousy, because it was one of the. Because I was like, because we had Frank on the show 3 times.
Yeah.
Because he's a sucker for punishment, and I don't know why. After the first time, we decided to come back and we actually talked about the City of Kings, I think, that time. But
he's a lovely guy. It's so easy to chat to. We could have played games with him the entire weekend, and you could see, after he'd got bored with us, we were like, well, we could probably keep playing, couldn't we? And he was like, well, there are some other people that might want to play the game as well.
No, I mean, it's I think it's testament to him that the game funded so well, because he kind of, you were probably aware yourself, the campaign that he ran was very, very good at communicating with the backers, and
definitely,
I think that because of that really, really helped the campaign, and I think he's probably having a well-earned break.
I think
at
he
the
probably
moment.
deserves, a few months of sleep.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, because I think that's what he says. Is whenever I spoke to him, it was like, "How are you?" He went, "I'm tired. I've just I've just done the graveyard shift to make sure that we're communicating with the American backers." But what was good with that was that I think there was some of the more well-known kind of super backers were kind of stepping in and kind of helping Frank with his campaign. So, so yeah, I mean, we shall. I'm kind of really excited to see how it plays, and it was really weird because Gloomhaven came out at the same time.
Yeah, have you managed to play that yet?
No, Colin is. It's one of those weird things. It's like Colin backed it because we had a conversation, and I said, "Well," he says, "Well, what do you want to do?" And it's like, "Well, there's no point in us both getting it because it appears to be 120 hours of a campaign." And it says, and to be honest, the artwork on City of Kings, and this is going to sound terrible, but it looked nicer. It looked a bit more colourful.
Yeah.
And I'm a big sucker for art. If a game looks kind of like really, there's a couple of games in my collection which I've got because the artwork is fantastic. The We're Not Wizards' favourite, Ashes: Rise of the Phoenix Born. The art on that is absolutely spectacular, and that's one of the reasons that I kind of love the game. But I've not played Gloomhaven. Everybody that's played it says it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
What about you guys? Have any of you managed to kind of snaffle a game of it? Or
I don't think any of us have it. I can't remember if Steve backed it or not. Yeah, I don't really remember. That's the other problem I have with it, with the podcasts. I've got such a bad memory. Steve's like, "Oh, do you remember that game we played like 6 months ago?" And I'll be like, "No, not really." And then after about 5 minutes talking about it, I'm like, "Oh, the one with the dice and the board and things. Ah, yeah.
The one, the guy that demonstrated it that had the face. Him. Yeah, okay, that's the kind of the one. I mean, are there games that you are looking forward in the future then? As I say, that obviously we've got City of Kings kind of coming on, that seems kind of exciting, but is there anything else that you've kind of piqued your interest in the kind of last couple of months which you're going to keep an eye on?
City of Kings is probably the main one, to be perfectly honest. I was going to say another one, but I can't remember the name of it is now. We saw it at Aircon as well. Anyway, it was it was another one.
Living up to your reputation. I haven't got a terrible memory. Tell us another game you like. Can't remember.
I mean, I've got a confession because because my memory's so bad, and because I'm not as dedicated to the board gaming scene, let's say, as Andy and Steve. I love board games, absolutely love playing them, but I've got too many hobbies to spend as much time as Andy and Steve do on the background stuff, and because I've got Steve and Andy in my life. Well, I've kind of delegated that responsibility already. I don't need to look into what good games are coming up because all I need to do is wait for the next podcast and wait for Steve or Andy to go, "So, this new board game," and I'll go, "Oh, that sounds interesting," and then they'll proceed to tell me everything I need to know about it.
It's like when they're covering. Did you? What did you think of when they were? Did you hear the one when they were talking about Everdark?
I've heard Andy and Steve talk about it a lot, and I saw it at the expo. I didn't see it this year, but the year before. Yeah. And that looks awesome, actually. Really looking forward to that one, actually. Yeah,
it's kind of... I've been kind of talking back and forward quite a bit with Ed about it. And, it's certainly sounding like it's going to be one to watch. I like the idea of something kind of different kind of coming out there. Because I see on Kickstarter there seems to be... a plethora of... There's a lot of card games out there at the moment, and there's a lot of kind of dungeony type crawlers, but so it's nice to see something kind of new and fresh. Yeah, something with a very different set of mechanics in it. Yeah. No, I mean, it'd be we'll see, but it might be your bag because of concentric circles and stuff like that. I quite like. So. It's been a while since I looked at it, but I quite like the way it seemed to be a mix of... You're all kind of got some cooperative elements, like you've got to
you've got to all work together a bit to get
Yeah.
to the end. But similarly to something like Battlestar Galactica, at the same time, you're also working against one another to some extent.
Yeah, it's like, I think as the game progresses, I think Ed said this himself, as the game kind of progresses, you'll be in the situation where you've got the option to block or put an Everdark token down in a place where one of your one of your kind of colleagues is meant to be. You can block their path and make them have to go kind of like the long way around, and towards the end it turns into kind of like a kind of a cutthroat kind of basis then.
That's it, like a Scrabble for the finish. Yeah, we're all together.
Yeah.
Smash your face into the ground, run for the end. I can do this, it's me.
Oh, what's that in my back? What's that in my back? It's my knife.
Yeah. No, I think that's going to be a good game. And I think Andy's had quite a bit of feedback on
Yeah, he was giving a lot of feedback. He says he had some feedback he was gonna kind of think actually kind of feedback kind of thing. Do you? I mean, would you think you could ever actually have Andy and Steve played Talisman?
Steve's played it loads, and despite what he might say,
What?
I think there is one episode where Steve said that he enjoys it in some respects.
Do you have that as your ringtone on your phone?
Yeah, whenever Steve rings. I like Talisman.
I think you'll find I love it.
It just sounded a little bit cut, I don't know why.
I know, it's kind of like made up of... That's what I'm always worried about, kind of like bank voice recognition technology.
Did you ever see a film called Sneakers?
Yes. Oh, that's... was that Robert Redford?
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
Johnny Lee Miller, and wasn't Angelina Jolie in that as well?
Was she?
I think I don't know, maybe. I don't know. This is when we get the phones out. Right, okay. Live podcasting.
I don't think she
information.
Was, but that film, they had a security system. And to defeat it, they basically took the geeky programmer guy out for dinner and got him to say all the words so that they could say, my voice is my passport, verify me.
Oh dear.
It's a great film.
An old
classic.
I'm gonna have to check. I don't care, guys, you can hang on while Richard just goes ahead and checks. 1992.
There you go. Classic.
That's when somebody says to you 1992, and in your brain you go 15 years ago, and then somebody reminds you it's 25. It's celebrating its 25th birthday. Let's see, what does it say? People in it. River Phoenix was in it.
Yeah.
Sidney Poitier. Dan Aykroyd.
There was a lot of famous people in that film.
Ben Kingsley. Oh my goodness. This is like a who's who of... Right, okay, so maybe Angelina Jolie. Johnny Lee Miller wasn't in it either, so I got that wrong. So what was he in? Was he not in another kind of hacky type thing? I don't know.
You're asking the guy with the shit memory.
I know, exactly. It's like, so John, what do you have for dinner tonight?
Steve, what did I have for dinner tonight?
Well, it was on a plate. I think I definitely used... Did I use a fork? Honey, it was soup. Alright, I used a spoon.
I did use a fork. Oh dear.
Exactly. Just gonna like... So it's dribbled down the kind of the...
In my defence, I think I've trained myself to have a really shit memory because I'm a software engineer. And so... Basically, the whole time you've got a computer in front of you, you've got notes in front of you, so you write everything down. And you don't need to remember anything.
Well, it's called you got to document stuff anyway if you're a software engineer. So there's no point. It's not like somebody can say, "Go and look over that code. Go and tell me how that store procedure worked for you again." It says, "No, I've written it all down. It's documented. Check it out over there."
If you've done it right.
If you've done
yeah, it's documented, but there's no need to check them. I can just explain it to you if I can figure out how it works again.
Because I've forgotten to actually document it in the first place, kind of thing. Awkward shuffle. Would you would you ever kind of go down the lines of kind of like, with you being a software engineer, have you ever thought about putting together a kind of little game yourself then?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, when I was a kid, my dad, also a software engineer, he used to put together bits and pieces so that you could... We used to make like these sort of tile-based games. So he put together some framework so you could like draw the individual tiles and then move something around on a board.
All right.
And when I was a bit older, I figured out how to use OpenGL, and so I used to make little games you could play. Used to have this little game called Beasts or something like that, where you had like a square. It's like a monochrome screen, green and black. And you used to have little eggs and things that used to hatch into beasties, and you had to basically move little blocks around on this screen to squish the beasts before they all hatched into super beasts and eventually squished you. So I tried to make that again in like a 3D top-down kind of thing. That worked quite well. It was good fun. So yeah.
Have you thought about putting something into cardboard then?
I've thought about it a few times. We talked about this on a podcast recently, actually, about remaking something a bit like Talisman, but with my mates. Happened.
So is that without Steve and Andy then? To kind of
well, they'd
definitely
be in there, but they'd be like the worst characters.
You'd be like that. You're a dragon, excellent. That has a flame, that's allergic to flame. Basically.
Yeah.
So even if you intake a breath, you just explode and die. How many hit points have I got? You start off with -3.
I can't believe I didn't mention this earlier, but one of the best bits of Talisman is that you get to turn people into toads. How did I forget that?
How did you forget?
I don't know. I was distracted.
Well, what to do is if you just say, one of the best things about Talisman is you can turn people into toads. I can edit it back retrospectively into the podcast.
So, one of the best things about Talisman, have you seen that video? The best things about Hero Quest.
I've not yet. I've heard about it, but
you need to watch it. It's absolutely brilliant.
I just cracked out my copy of Hero Quest. I'm saying the other week, and let my 4-year-old son see it. And I actually played it with my 11-year-old son, and I put some pictures on the old Instagram. But it's a tough game.
It is quite tough, isn't it?
Just crazy. But no, one of the best things about Talisman is you can turn people into toads. Is that what you said?
It's that either you can turn them into toads, or through a sequence of very unfortunate events, people can get turned into them, which basically means you could be this hardcore guy because you've got all sorts of magical armour and crazy weapons and stuff like that, and then some horrible event will befall you, and while you're sat there being all smug because you're this ultra powerful guy, you suddenly get turned into a toad with like a strength of 1 and a craft of 1. And you've got 3 turns to hop around the board while other people try and pick up all your lovely stuff that you've just got.
So you lose all your armour and equipment and stuff like that at the same time. Yeah,
basically. But it's quite good because you can have you can have someone who's basically walking away with the game, and you're like, well, we could play this for another 2 hours and be basically gradually crushed by this person as they monotonously edge towards the end game, only to get killed anyway. But now that they're obviously in front, everyone's now focused on making sure that they don't win, and so all the opportunities to turn them into a toad or make it more enticing for them to take the risks where they might get turned into a toad suddenly come out of the bag. And it becomes this great long, it doesn't really matter anymore that I'm not winning the game, because there's a more entertaining game right now, which is making sure that Jon becomes a frog.
And I can't think of it happening to a nicer man.
And it's that sort of stuff that I think can really get people into these sorts of games. That that it's not just you go around in circles and then someone eventually wins. There are all these opportunities for someone to get flattened.
Well, let's see. I mean, as a kind of as a finally thing, let's go and see how much we can buy talismans for because, and I'm pretty sure you could probably get it for a reasonable price.
Yeah, I think the actual base game is still not too bad, but the expansions are, some of them are pretty mental.
So you're hoping that your wife, like, when you get into, like, say your 15th, 25th wedding anniversary, rather than buy you, I don't know, help, goes towards a car or a nice holiday or something like that, she rips out, there you go, darling, I got you a Talisman expansion, the one you've never played before.
Woohoo! Love you!
You know how to get to my heart. Of course, if you did it the other way around, and it's like, now remember, if it's making me happy, it's making you happy.
Well, I like to think of it like some of my other investments, like a projector. On the face of it, it seems like it's a great big thing and it's in the middle of the wall and it's a little bit unsightly and it was quite a lot of money. But on the other hand, we can watch it every night. This is for you.
Exactly. But Rogue One looks amazing when it's 6 foot high.
It does.
Honey. It does.
She was right though. 3 meters is too wide for a projector screen. 2.5 sweet spot.
Sweet spot. Talisman's 40 quid on the biggest river in the South Americas.
Bargain. So, go and buy yourself a copy now.
Go and buy yourself a copy now. And the what is this? The Harbinger board game expansion is 26 quid.
Yeah, some of the other expansions are still a reasonable price, but there's
Catalyst 45. Oh, here we go. Here's a crazy one.
The Talisman or something is really
expensive. The 4th edition expansion, the dungeon, is going between 76 to 530. Now, working alongside Amazon, that's potentially a error caused by their pricing software, not Amazon's, but the person that's selling it. Because the Dragon expansion is £90, and the city is 120. So I mean, this is stuff that you're better getting that than buying a crate of fine wine.
Yeah,
who would have knew? Who would have knew, John? Who would have knew that Talisman is actually... It's not just worth it as a game, it's worth it in cold, hard cash. So stick that in your pipe, Lewis.
If you can hold on to it long enough. I mean, it's an amazing game, so why would you hold on to it?
I know, you just want it forever. I know, exactly, scalpers. Coming over here buying our Talisman and then selling it for a ridiculously high profit.
Unbelievable.
Indeed. Listen, John, thank you for coming on. Things have flown.
Yeah, it has zoomed. Has it really been an hour?
It's really been an hour. We could do it. Yeah. Okay, quick question then, because we do have time. We've always got loads of time. If you, and this is becoming a semi-non-popular question that I make up just sometimes, is if you were involved in a zombie apocalypse and you managed to stumble into the havens of a board game that was essentially folded in time and space, that had access to every single board game that had ever existed, and you were allowed to run out with 3 of those board games into the middle of the hordes of the undead, which 3 board games would you take with you?
To play forever.
To play or do whatever you want forever.
Ooh, that is tough. I think you'd have to have something... I'd maybe take the bigger, blacker box simply for its defensive. You could wield it like a weapon. It's quite a long box, and it's pretty substantial.
Yeah.
So that's always a good one. I mean, obviously, I kind of have to take Talisman. I mean, we spent most of the last hour talking about it, so... And then, zombies, they'd probably enjoy it.
There you go. Because, I think they would want to be something else. They're not the chosen undead. They would probably rather not be there at all. So, if you could persuade them in their minds that they were actually frogs or toads.
If you just cast a toad spell...
Fantastic, they're there all the way. Yeah,
toads are much easier to squish than zombies, I suspect.
And the third one?
That is tougher. I think if you look at all the games I've played, and the ones that I play most often, if you're going to survive a zombie apocalypse, maybe something like Neuroshima Hex.
There you go.
Would work, because it's a longer strategy game. So, unbelievably, I do occasionally play these games.
No, it's all right. I'm always worried that people are going to say, "You don't really play board games, do you? You just podcast about them." It's like, yes,
yeah, that's exactly me.
Yes, I do. I've never played Settlers of Catan except on mobile. Can I just say? Just confession time. But with me and Andy did have a confession time when we spoke about games that we've got on our shelf which we've never played, or games that we've never played which you really should have, being involved in kind of, I guess, the kind of the sphere that we're involved in, or whatever you would call it.
I must admit, when I took that photo of all the board games I got, I was quite horrified by, I think, maybe 10 or 20% of the board games I own I haven't played my copy of. So I have played most of them, just not the one that I've got.
Are there games that you have got the rules, read the rules, kind of watched the videos, but haven't even played, but haven't touched yet?
Yeah, so I bought Ain't Nothing Personal on the strength of... I used to go to this board gaming night with Steve and then Andy, and we played the Portal game, which is great fun if you've not played it.
I've got it, yeah.
Yeah, so I quite enjoyed, and it became clear that I quite enjoyed the whole stabbing people in the back part of the game. And so the guy that we were playing with said, if you enjoy that kind of game, then and you want like the epitome of that kind of game, you need to get yourself a copy of Ain't Nothing Personal. And on the strength of his description, I thought, yeah, that sounds like fun. So I bought it, and I've had it for 6 to 9 months, I think, at least. And last weekend, I actually got the box open, took out the cellophane, and I started reading the rule book and fell asleep.
Well, can't have been a very, very good game.
I think it's just difficult to read a rule book on its own without the counters. And find much enthusiasm for it. You need to play it even with yourself, I think.
I think I kind of need the... I like a video. Give me a bit of Rodney Smith.
Yeah. A video is definitely easier to digest, isn't it?
Yeah. Give me a bit of Rodney Smith or Michael May from Two Can Play That Game, because he's really good.
Yeah.
Or even Luke Hector from The Broken Meeple has started kind of doing some videos as well, so he's always worthwhile watching there's a couple of other guys. I mean, you've got your Rados and everyone like that as well. Yeah. But yeah, give me that and some instructions, because I think I've read recently. Abyss was one that I was reading over. The lovely card game that Colin later on told me, "Oh, I love that game. I play it all the time." And I was like, "Well, I just spent like 3 hours trying to learn the rules." He goes, "That's really easy, I'll tell you." But I must have read the rule book back and forward, and I think I got stuck on the first rule, going about how many cards you need to bid on and how that kind of mechanic worked. And I watched a couple of videos and had to grasp it that way. And I was like, going, rules should be simple. Make rules simple. But I think that's the latest one that I've kind of read through, but I still haven't played. But I'm going to play it with Colin ASAP.
Me too. I'm definitely going to play that game like in the next 9 months.
Exactly. It's definitely a 2019 goal.
It's a project.
It's definitely. I'm going to treat it the same way I treat a mortgage. As long as I get it done by I'm 65, then everything is good, I think. Listen, John, thank you for coming on.
It's been a
pleasure. I've had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm kind of weighing up in my mind. I don't even know if I need to bother asking Steve on now. I mean, I think I should, though, shouldn't I? Complete the set, complete the trilogy.
I think you've got to.
I think so. But then, do I call it? What do I call him then? Do I call him is he now officially the James May?
I don't think he'd dispute it.
Oh, you probably wouldn't. But if people have listened tonight and they want to, we've obviously spoken about Polyhedron Collider, but where can we find you on the internet webs?
Well, if you go to polyhedroncollider.com, you can find us there. If you go
how do you spell Polyhedron Collider?
With difficulty. If you Google it, Google will find it for you. That's the simplest.
I'm only joking. I know.
No, I'm not going to embarrass myself.
No, I was only taking the Michael because I know that I'm at the point now where I've added I've added Steve enough on Twitter that it just automatically comes up when I press the P.
Yeah.
So I don't need to try and spell it, because otherwise I get this maths professor in Utah who keeps saying, "Why are you tweeting me about board games?"
I'll tell you what, if you think it's difficult trying to spell the thing, you should try trying to describe to Alexa what you want to listen to.
Are you on? Of course, because you can you listen to you through the kind of the podcast thing now?
Yeah, so I have managed to get it to play an episode before, but every time it's like I can't remember exactly which version of Polyhedron Collider. Yeah? The Polyhedron Collider, the Polyhedron Collider. Just play the freaking podcast, Alexa. For the love of God!
It is like playing the Dice Tower. Episode 16. You're like that? No!
That was not what I said.
Tom Vassell does not need any more publicity about his podcast.
That's right. He's got enough. He's done well.
And Tom, if you're listening, hats off, and we love you, big kisses and everything like that. Don't kill us. So you can find you on. You're all over the place because Polyhedron Collider, you're on. It's Facebook. There's Polyhedron Collider on
That's right.
Twitter. It's at Polyhedron C.
Yeah, that's right.
You're on Board Game Geek, which is Polyhedron Collider. If you search for that, and you've got a guild, and you've got a little forum.
There is a guild and a forum, and I can never remember the bloody number.
It does. If people can search for it, they can find you.
Yep.
I believe you're on Instagram as well. We shall make sure there's kind of show notes. If they want to keep a track on your good self, you want to share tips with Talisman or any other,
Neuroshima Hex.
Yep.
Other board games are available.
Absolutely.
Then I'd look
conditions
for
on request.
That's it. I'd look for at Jon_Cage on Twitter. Yep.
Excellent. And if you want to find out where we are, and God bless you if you're still following us, really seriously, have you not got better things to do?
Of course they are. It's great fun.
It's like the sun is shining. You can be going outside and doing other things, but if you do demand that you want to find us, then if you go to Twitter, we're at We're Not Wizards. We're on Facebook at We're Not Wizards. We are on Apple Podcasts. If you search for We're Not Wizards Tabletop, you'll find us. I think you'll find us if you just search for We're Not Wizards nowadays.
Do it.
We are on. We've gone on to things like Spreaker and Stitcher and Acast and all these little pod kind of podcast catcher things.
Spreaker.
If we're not on, yeah, I know.
I've not even heard that one.
I've not even heard of it either, but I kind of saw it and I think, we'll see what that's all about. So apparently we're now on Spreaker as well, which is all fantastic.
Why not?
Of course we are on the big one, which is the Apple Podcasts. And as we say, if you have liked what you've heard tonight, then if you leave us a review. Now remember, don't leave us a 10, because that'll make us big-headed, and don't leave us a 1, because that will make us cry. So leave us something in the middle, like average, like a 5.
I think 8's right in the middle, right?
Well, it's kind of. But one day, everybody will understand that iTunes reviews only go up to 5, and stop ruining this joke. But leave us a 5, because we are obviously decidedly average. But the person who has not been average tonight is the wonderful, the fantastic, the person that makes me want to go back to the beginning of the show and come up with a better title for this episode. It is the one and only Mr. Jon Cage.
You are far too kind.
It's been good fun. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
Likewise. And it's been good fun. I've really enjoyed it.
It has. Good. And there's only a couple of things left to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards.
We're not. We might be toads, but we're definitely not wizards.
Yeah, and you wizards stay away and take your toads and put them somewhere else, basically, or we'll have you.
I'll put them back in the box.
Pretty much. Best way to do it. And the other thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Mr. Jon Cage.
It's been a pleasure.
I've had a blast and a half. And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll sixes, get yourself on a board game selling website and pick yourself up a copy of Talisman with a capital T. Or if you're feeling a little bit cheeky, go and pick up a copy of Sorry, because you won't be sorry either way. But it's terrible. Absolutely terrible. But
you
until
might be
the
a
next,
bit sorry.
I might be a little bit sorry. Exactly. Buyer is the no. If I do a board game, it's going to be called Buyer's Regret, I think.
I think Andy might have that one.
And what it does is it includes, like, you open the box and there's like bubble wrap and some parcel tape and some brown paper, and it allows you to send the game back to me once you've had it for like 3 months and not played it. I think that would be fantastic.
Didn't the what are they called? Cards Against Humanity guys, didn't they do a bullshit promotion one time? Which was as it sounded.
Yeah, they burned a pile of money as well for whatever reason, you know.
Everyone's got to have a hobby.
Exactly, look at those greenbacks burn. And on that note, until the next time, my lovely non-wizards, goodbye and good night.
Catch you later.